fishing, bird watching, dragon hunting? It's the dragon watching. So
Dragon imagining.
Imagining, thank you. So those 3 are the games that we're gonna compare, which one we love the most. But first we're gonna explain to you Finspan and overview what is it about. And hi everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant here.
From Meeple University. As I said, I'm going to explain what Finspan is about, or Tarrant will. And then we're going to compare with the other 2, and we're going to show you which one we like the most and some similarities of the 3 and differences and so on.
Yes, so Finspan, a wingspan game. They've done very well to find a fish that looks almost exactly like the wingspan.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
So it's very much, as you'll see, it's a game that is very much inspired by where Wingspan began. And here we have it. So you can see the board, the tableau that you'll be setting up, very similar to the other game, except now we've got 3 columns instead of 3 rows, and that's very simply because we're doing fish deeper instead of building them across.
Makes sense.
Like both of its predecessors, there are 4 actions in the game. The first one is to play a fish, in this case. And so you would pay the cost that's on your fish. In this case, it's an egg. You would place it into a valid location. In this case, it would have to be the purple column because you can see the purple there. And it has to be in one of the sunlight depths. So there's 3 different depths: sunlight, twilight, and midnight. So you place it in a valid location. These cards will then contribute to a tableau which have various effects on them. They can be when activated effects, they could be immediate effects, or they could be end of game effects. Then the other 3 actions are to activate each of your columns, and the columns will get more powerful when there's more fish played into it. So that's very much the same as Wingspan and Wyrmspan. You've got 1 column where you'll be gaining new cards from the deck. So you would go down and get cards. You've got 1 where you'll be gaining new eggs and playing eggs onto the different fish. And then you've got 1 where you would be hatching these eggs into young fish or moving them around to try to form schools, because when you get 3 young fish together, they form a school which levels up points that they can score. So again, within each column, there's 3 sections. There's a general ability for the section, which gets resolved only if there's at least 1 fish in it. Plus, you activate the effects on fish. So if I were activating this column, I would get an egg for this. I would get an egg for this fish. There's a pre-printed fish here, so I would get an egg. There's no fish in the bottom section, so I would get nothing. And then each column also has a special effect for the first time you resolve it each round, and that kind of encourages you to diversify a little bit. You go through playing like that, and then after each player has taken 6 actions, you score the end of round objective. Very similar to the other games. It plays more like the basic version from Wingspan, so you'll score for everything that meets it rather than it being a fully ranked scenario. But if you do play with side B, then you also get 3 points for having the most. So a little bit of competition there. And after the 4th round, you resolve end game abilities and count up final score for points on fish, points for your eggs and young and schools and all of that sort of thing.
So those are the similarities, thank you Tarrant, by explaining what Finspan is about. So now we're going to talk about the differences between Finspan and Wingspan and Wyrmspan.
So one we've already kind of alluded to is that fish are limited both horizontally and vertically for where they can be placed, unlike in the predecessors where you're always filling your tableau from left to right. So it means that as you're collecting these fish, you need to be getting a fully diverse range. You want to be trying to hang on to enough midnight ones to fill up midnight spaces, because if you are getting only sunlight ones, you're going to choke up the top of your board and you're not going to unlock these stronger powers.
Yes.
So that makes for a different take, especially early in the game.
Yes, a diversity not only on the certain column, but also the row as well.
Probably the biggest difference, for me anyway, between Finspan and its predecessors is that the costs of playing the fish are significantly simplified.
It's true.
So in both those other games, they're pretty typical contract fulfillment resource collecting types of games. Wingspan's got 5 different types of resources, plus a wild if you've got Oceania, and you're trying to get specific combinations out of the bird feeder in order to play the birds. In Wyrmspan, you've got the different resources. You don't have the feeder, but you've got the actions that let you collect the different resources. And again, there's four different ones. The milk mostly used for the young ones, but you're trying to get these specific combinations to play the dragons.
This makes this game, Finspan, is the most simple. I mean, not only the resources, but there are other things that we haven't actually mentioned. It's coming up soon.
Yeah, so the costs for your fish, there's really only 4 different costs. There's consume eggs, so you just discard an egg from your board. There's consume young, so you just discard a young from your board. There's discard card, so you discard a card from your hand, which is face up, by the way, into a personal discard pile. And there are ways of getting those back, but essentially as you're collecting cards, you're often spending them as the costs of fish. And this is all a food chain thing. This is like food chain, not magnate, but it's a food chain thing because it's all about fish eating other fish.
Yeah.
And that's what the last one is. It's directly consuming a smaller fish.
Basically feeding frenzy the board game. Literally, there's like these video games from, I don't know, years ago called Feeding Frenzy. It was really satisfying. Like you keep eating fish and then you keep eating the smaller fish and then you becoming larger fish and then continue eating the smaller fish and so on.
Yeah, that's right. So, and it means that the fin span or the length of the fish has a much greater role here than Wingspan and Wyrmspan.
Yes.
Because if I've got a fish that has this cost here, I can only play that by it consuming a smaller fish that is on the board. So I would need to find the right section of the board and find a smaller fish that's already there to eat it.
Yes.
And the one that's been eaten is like a tucked card, so it's still worth a point. But it means that you can manipulate the tableau and work towards the bigger fish and the predators much more carefully.
Yeah, true. And the next difference, the main difference is the cards. These cards, although there's still a stack of them, the actions, they're quite simplified compared to the previous ones. So you can see that it's repeating itself or themselves or something that is, in general, it's more simpler.
Yes, Wingspan was a game with a lot of text effects, birds that had lots of a wide variety of slightly different or very different effects that were written out in text, and you had to interpret the text, and then you had all these different combinations of how one could interact with another. Wyrmspan simplified it. Most if not all of the effects could be described with combinations of icons, and they were, you still had to combo them, but sometimes you were using them to get like specific resources you needed. You were trying to do these very specific things, and it felt more Euro tight, Euro crunchy. Yeah. Here, there's really only about 5 different things that the fish do, and most of them
kind of repeating themselves as well.
They repeat themselves. They repeat a lot of what's in the columns, and they repeat a lot of what's in their own columns. So this is a purple fish. I could play that here. This was a purple fish. They all just give you eggs. So as I'm going down this column, I'm going to be getting egg, 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 2 eggs, egg. And there are some that can go in other columns that will get you eggs, and they're quite nice because they help you diversify, give you ways of getting eggs from other places. But yeah, you're going to find particularly the column-restricted fish doing what that column already does. And a lot of the other fish, they're not going to do that many different things. So it's less about finding combos. It's less about finding broken combos or things that work together. It's much more of a game of accumulation. Because how you accumulate points here, eggs are worth a point, like they always have been. So you can collect eggs and you can build them onto your board to gain 1 point each. You can hatch them into young, and young are also worth 1 point each, so you don't get any points by doing that. But then there's a little movement puzzle. So each time you get a movement icon, you move 1 young as far as you want in one direction. And if you ever get to the point where there are 3 young in the same space, they form a school, and the school is worth 6 points. So you kind of got the egg is worth 1. The egg, once you take it 2 more steps through hatching and movement, would be worth 2, because 2 times 3 is 6. So it's a game of accumulation in that way. And there's a little bit of a movement puzzle in trying to place things in such a way that it's efficient to move them. But you're not going to get that many creative combos as you go through that. And if we come to the original question of which is our favourite, which is my favourite, out of the 3 span games, it's that factor that puts Finspan at the bottom for me.
Okay.
The fun tableau building of Wingspan and the tight tableau building of Wyrmspan, I don't find that here because it's more of a dry accumulating tableau for me, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything all that new or exciting. You have to try to combine what you're doing here with these, because there's a lot of points in doing the right things in the right week. Maybe that's a bit Terra Mystica-y in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't as interesting a challenge as the other 2 games for me.
I can see that as well for you. Why? I can understand why, because Finspan is the lightest one of all, and Terran doesn't usually sway by the theme, right? You might think that, okay, if you like fish, and you probably like Finspan more, Breadwatcher, fantasy lovers for Wyrmspan. But it's also the complexity. Finspan is, I would say, the entry level to all those 3, and then Wingspan, and then Wyrmspan being the most crunchy of all, right?
From a thinking while playing standpoint, yes, I'd agree. It's not, and part of what harms this one for me is it's not that much simpler to learn.
Right.
You still have to learn the 4 actions, learn how the tableau works, learn the key icons. But then once I've learned all those things, in Wingspan I've got all this extra text that I can then branch off and link together. Whereas once I've learned my rule set, there's not much more to discover in Finspan. And so, yeah, that too brings it down for me.
Plus, I think you like the interaction more. And while this feels like multiplayer solitaire a lot more than the other 2.
Yeah, and I think that's partly, it's partly because there's no face-up market of cards. That's another difference that we didn't mention. All your cards are drawn blindly.
Yes.
There's a few powers that do interact with your opponent. Mostly it's positive interactions, so you'll have an effect which lets all of your opponents do something. Usually it's a cheap, high-scoring fish, but it's offset by the fact that other players get to do something. And there's a little bit of competition here. One thing that I did like, certainly in theory, in Finspan was the fish consuming the other fish. As it's presented, it's thematic, and it gives you a good sort of planning puzzle to do as well. Like, you can end up with these fish early on who score a lot if they eat other fish or if they're part of a chain that has eaten multiple fish. So, there'll be a fish that's worth, not that many points, but if there's 2 consumed fish under it or 3 consumed fish under it, it's worth way more.
Yeah.
And I like the planning that offers. It gives you a different sort of planning thought process to either Wing or Wyrmspan, because it means you've got to go looking for the sorts of fish that have the powers that will, or have the right sizes to fit underneath. So I liked that rule. I didn't find in the end that it was as big a part of the game as I thought it was going to be. I read through the rules that was in there. It explained how that worked. It was a big section in the rule book. There actually weren't that many fish as an overall proportion that ate other fish. So that's a little disappointing for me. I would have liked a bit more eating on top of eating, because I think that would have made the puzzle of it all a bit more of a long thinking ahead.
So the words "plenty of fish in the sea" doesn't work for you, Taryn?
It would have been really nice if it had been, not that many. Yeah, if there'd been fewer fish and they were all eating each other, it could have been a Could have been
Feeding
interesting.
frenzy again.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be more fun.
There is one thing which I know will thrill a lot of Wingspan detractors about this one, and that's the egg capacities as well. So each fish can only hold one egg. And we mentioned before that there's an effect at the bottom of the board that only resolves once per round. So these things for the players who always hated the final round, I'm always just getting eggs thing in Wingspan, which has never been a big problem for me. Just to be clear,
not according to the Grinch.
Grinch hated that. It's one of the Grinch's least favourite.
Okay, I'll put it in the description. If you're wondering, we did a parody of the Grinch hate Wingspan video.
Yes,
That's
and the final round eggs was a big part of it. So this one does have that balance because you'll run out of capacity for eggs. It means you've got to go from eggs to movement to forming schools.
Yeah.
But it also means you have to go from eggs to movement to forming schools. There's not kind of another way to go about it. You have to balance those three things to keep the capacity going.
Indeed.
Unless you've got a lot of fish that eat a lot of eggs, that's always possible.
Yes.
But despite all of that, it did feel a little bit less interactive than its predecessors.
Yes. For me, it's okay. I mean, I don't mind solitaire, multiplayer, solo game or whatever. I mean, you do play solo game, but if it's multiplayer game, you expect there's more interaction, right? So for me, it's okay. I feel like when I play Wingspan, I feel a little bit more frustrated because I'm trying to find that combo, and for me, it's a little bit harder to find that combo and then trying to get there, and then your work is dwindling and dwindling. What you need to do, right? You need to build your combo so that when your amount of workers dwindles, then that's okay. You just activate this very powerful combo, but it's harder for me to find the good combo for some reason for Wingspan. Well, this one is a bit easier, so your workers don't dwindle, and you'll be able to do, accumulate things, which I don't mind. But now the question is, which one's my favorite? I think out of all the three, my favorite is Wyrmspan, right? I'm an Omni gamer, but with Wyrmspan, the combo is not as, I feel like, for me anyway, the combo is not as frustrating as in Wingspan. I'll be able to do it and then trying to get extra actions by using the eggs, sorry, not the dragon coin, sorry. That feels very satisfying. And then it's dragon. Again, I'm okay with the theme. I'm not really attached to a particular theme. I love dragon. I love fish. I don't mind birds. But it's all more the mechanic side of things that makes me think that Wyrmspan is my favorite. How about you, Tarrant?
I've long resisted giving a clear answer to that question. They're good in different ways.
Yes, yeah, okay.
I think overall I probably enjoy the wild combo building, or the broader range and higher standard deviation of combo building that Wingspan offers, ever so slightly more, but they're very similar.
So what you're saying is that Wingspan is for you with any expansions at all?
Not with Oceania. I never enjoyed the...
with Oceania,
I never enjoyed the nectar.
All right.
That one was never for me.
Yeah, I do. Anyways.
With the others, mix the others in. I do like what European Birds adds.
Yes, that's true. So that's it. Which one's your favorite? Have you got a chance to play all of them? Let us know in the comments. We'd like to know. Or if there's anything else that you want to mention about any of these games, let us know. And thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it and have a great day. See you next time. Bye.